Hi, I'm Dave, owner of Future Past Vintage Collectibles. I'm here with my daughter, Rachel.
Hello.
Like we are every week, bringing you comic content of all different types. Today we're going to be talking about the top 10 bronze horror books. That's what we're talking about today.
That's what we're talking about today.
Let's get some housekeeping out of the way right now. So,
Sure.
anything coming up soon?
Yes, we do claim sales every single Monday over on Instagram. So go follow us over there if you're not already. 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time every single Monday. And we are doing an entire horror claim sale on October 24th. Bronze Age horror comics, 5 to 7 p.m. over on Instagram. That's a Tuesday. So we'll have a claim sale on Monday. And then we'll do a horror claim sale on that Tuesday from 5 to 7.
And we have slabs, we have super high grade, we have mid grade, we have a lot of keys. It's going to be interesting. Make sure that if you're looking for those types of books, to check it out.
Yep.
And last but not least, we buy collections. Write that somewhere. We buy collections. If you're thinking about selling, please reach out to us. We'd like an opportunity to chat with you about it. Easy to work with. We try to pay the most out there. So anyway, we buy collections. Let's get on to this list.
Okay.
How did I derive the top 10? Through experience, really. I have some other books we're going to talk about. And this is by no means complete. Like, we're not going to go over every horror book. It's really artist-driven and theme-driven. Also popularity. So I would venture to say that most people that collect these or that are knowledgeable about these will agree with most of this list. In terms of, like, these are books that have been sought after for decades, or this particular art really stood out, or these books are really hard to get and high priced. So this is a combination of those three things, but all of them are cool. I think you'll like every one of them. We would love if you have different ideas, drop it into the comments. Let us know what your top 10 would be.
I know everyone's probably different just because of, bias.
There's a tremendous amount of bias, and some people are more about what is there. Other people might be more concerned with how it was drawn. Other people might be more concerned about how rare it is. So there's a lot of different things that people might focus on, and that would drive your collecting a different way. Even before we get started, my earliest comic book I remember reading besides Superman was Witching Hour. I used to buy it. If my mom went to the store or we could get a comic, I would always point towards Witching Hour. I think I was 8 years old is the earliest memory I have of, like, getting a Witching Hour. I was living at Lake Tahoe at the time and reading it. So, yeah, these are books I really liked as a kid, and they were much milder than their counterparts in the pre-code golden age. So I'm going to start by saying this. Pre-code horror is far superior than Bronze Age horror. That's not controversial. What we'll do is we'll throw a couple of covers without getting into details right here. These books stood in the pantheon of the best art, best theme, actually scary.
I'll also pin the video that we did about gore covers. That a lot of ECs are in that.
And EC really had cornered the market on writing. Their stories were fantastic, but their covers were fantastic. Sometimes they left things to the imagination. Sometimes they did not. When it comes to horror, EC might hold some of those top positions in terms of the covers, but there are just so many horror covers from the pre-code age that are phenomenal. And here's the deal. They're so expensive. So where do you go if you like horror? Well, I go back to these. So that's what this is. This is
Bronze Age 10.
Talking about, like, people who collect Bronze Age horror. This top 10 list, I think, will hit on a few notes of what they really think. So I want to bring up some different books that definitely deserve some honorable mentions, if for nothing else. They're cool. They definitely stand out to me and other people as desirable books. There are so many books I'm not going to talk about. Don't let this be mistaken as what I think is the best out there. I just think that these things all deserve to be mentioned for different reasons. And we will start with which one, Rachel?
Ghostly Haunts number 49 from 1976 with Fernando and Recreo art.
Yeah, so you may be looking at this saying, I've never seen that before. Exactly. That's what I love about horror. There was some under the radar stuff, because this cover reminds me a bit of Frazetta in terms of the coloration in the back and that brooding, dark, smoky feeling that it has. But the more you look at that small figure, it's just creepy. That guy's under a guillotine like that. But anyway, this is the type of stuff I go after. I don't care what anyone else thinks about it. I mean...
Well, we didn't mention there's only one graded copy of this, and it's a pedigree. That's the only copy of this book that's graded. It's the Donna Rose pedigree.
Is that right?
Yep. Don Rosa, sorry.
That's fascinating. Well, I have been looking for it.
It's a 9.6, and it's only sold... the last time it sold was in 2006, so good luck.
How much did that sell for? Do we have it?
I didn't write it down. It was from so long ago. I was like, that data doesn't matter anymore. It's so old.
I would love that book, though. Oh my gosh. And 9.6 Don Rosa? Holy mackerel.
The next honorable mention is Tomb of Dracula #1 from 1972. It's the first appearance of Dracula in the Bronze Age. Yeah. Frank Drake and Clifton Graves' appearance.
Yeah, so we got this Neil Adams cover, and this whole atmosphere that he's setting up there in this Picture Box 20 Center is phenomenal. And he'll carry that through DC on multiple covers and just does a better and better job. And actually, one of our top 10 books has a background reminiscent to that. So watch for that theme. That's that foggy, smoky castle in the background, full moon in the sky. That's a trope. I mean, you see it over and over and over. Yeah. It's pretty sick. Didn't make top 10. This book wasn't necessarily that popular. It has gotten popular over the last years.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
No. Why don't you talk about the values on this?
Yeah, so there's 3,500 graded copies. The last 9.8 sold for $7,200 in 2023.
Yeah. It had gone up during the comic boom and then came back down. It's tough to find a 9.8. What's next on the honorable mention list?
Yeah, Vampirella #1 from 1969. It is Warren Publishing. Origin and first appearance of Vampirella. Frank Frazetta cover.
Why am I bringing this up? So, because it's Frank Frazetta art. I don't know anyone who likes this type of content that doesn't like this cover. There's a lot going on because it's good girl art to a degree, but it's good girl gone bad. She's got her foot on a skull, for goodness sake. There you go again with that moon in the background and shadows, and you're really kind of wondering what's going on with this whole theme around her. But I just don't know anyone that collects horror that wouldn't love a nice copy or any copy of this book. And it's not cheap. So what's the most common graded?
7.5. There's 113 graded copies.
Yeah, that makes sense because if you notice on this cover, it's just super tough.
Even the image I have up there is pretty.
Yeah, any reading of this book or just throwing it around is going to leave marks.
Magazines are meant to be read.
Yeah, if you can put the price, the last highest grade copy. Yeah.
Okay, the next honorable mention is Marvel Spotlight #5 from 1972, origin and first appearance of Ghost Rider. So, Mike Ploog. Yeah, Mike Ploog, picture box cover, 20 center. It really kind of brought that supernatural edge that was coming out. Son of Satan was next, and there were some other characters. I don't know about you, but I do separate this type of horror content from other types of horror content. So to me, any supernatural horror, the Werewolf by Night, and some of the other characters are a bit in a different league because most of them were established characters through movies and other types and books and so on, where Ghost Rider was unique. Was he? I mean, it was actually a Western series that had transformed into this. So they updated the Western version into this Ghost Rider, which was incredibly hip. But yeah, this book is very popular. And I think a lot of people think of it as a horror-like book, but I've never really heard anyone refer to it as a horror book. It's more of a superhero book. Yeah.
But
there's a lot of copies of it.
But like I said, I think that it bears, to be mentioned that we should at least bring it up when we're talking about this topic.
Yeah, I mean, it's not cheap either.
No.
I don't know if you want to talk about that or no.
We can for a second. So the price of this book was really... It kind of went off the deep end when a 9.8 sold for $250,000, exactly $264, a couple of years back, because no copy had ever got anywhere near that. So yeah. Everyone, I think, at the time felt that the first appearance of Ghost Rider, Marvel Spotlight 5, had now blown up to some astronomical number. It has not. So you see the market continue to adjust down. I was talking with my brother, and we were discussing this, and we don't think it would probably get more than somewhere between $80,000 and $90,000 in today's market for a 9.8. And there's some evidence that there's other books on our list too that also, we have a book that got $30,000 for the first time on our list. So.
I mean, there's only 4 9.8s of that book, so I don't know if another one's going to sell in a long time.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't be completely shocked if one was out there, and that would really hurt the price too if a 5th copy, believe it or not. What else you have?
Yeah, the next honorable mention that we have is Monster of Frankenstein #1 from 1973, another Mike Plug cover.
Yeah, and picture box-esque. It feels boxed up even though it's not. I really like everything about this book, and I have a lot of Monster of Frankenstein. Mostly late. I kind of started picking these up late because of Mike Plug. I used to admire Mike Plug art. I think he's a phenomenal artist, and I wasn't paying a great deal of attention to him before. I am now because I think he stands out in a crowd.
The next honorable mention is Daredevil 130 from 1976, Klaus Janson cover.
Yeah.
Skeleton.
Here's a book never talked about. Why am I bringing up Daredevil in this horror conversation? Klaus Janson, folks. Look at that cover. I mean, of all skeletons that I've seen in the Bronze Age, this is probably my favorite. And even the theme of this, that this skeleton is hanging him, a version of him, almost like a voodoo doll. Yeah, there's nothing I don't like about this. Super hard book to find and grade.
There's only 79 graded copies.
Yeah, I don't think people put a lot. Daredevil didn't get a lot of love. Some of his issues are paid attention to, some aren't. This to me is one of my favorite covers, and yeah, finding this over a 9.0, incredibly tough.
Yeah, there's also 2 graded UK variants of this, which I thought was interesting. I bet those go for money.
Well, usually UK does not get a big bump in price.
It's just rare.
It is.
Yeah. So this is 2 books, Beyond the Grave 1 and Beyond the Grave 9. Tom Sutton did #1 and Gene Day did #9.
So yeah, the #1 is profoundly different than the #9 because
it's like 9 Day.
It appears to be a painted cover as opposed to a drawn cover, and you can really see the difference. The cover #1 is a bit muddy to me, but it's also a very cool book. It falls into that category of what I really consider horror. It's called Beyond the Grave, for goodness sake. And then the other issue, I really like that theme of the bone specter, with the sickle in his hand, and it's a trope that you're going to see in, covers across time, going all the way back into the, pre-code. But I dig some of these covers. Like I'm certainly not a completist in what I like. I really gravitate towards art because these stories tend not to be great. So now it's just about like what year it was and what else was going on, and this is the type of art that I like to collect.
All right, the next honorable mention is Red Circle Sorcery #6. It is the first issue, numbering continued from Chilling Adventures in Sorcery #5, and Gray Morrow did the cover.
Yeah, Gray Morrow does not get the props he should. Absolutely love this cover. Almost made the top 10.
We've shown this book before, too. We'll have an issue of it.
One of the reasons it's not in the top 10, it didn't make it, is because it's really not hard to find a copy of this in high grade. Not that all the top 10 books are hard to find. Some of them are just price restrictive. But as I start talking about those books, finding nice copies is next to impossible. So this one, I think you could still get out there and get like a near mint copy for under $100. So
there's just not a lot of graded copies of it. There's only 12.
Yeah, isn't that something though?
Yeah, because the last sale of a 9.8 was in 2019.
So I have several very high grade raw copies of this, and I'm really not motivated to slab them.
I mean, I don't think anyone was, obviously, because there's only 12 of them.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I think the more people know about it, the more, if more than 12 people wanted one, it would create some growth.
And there's only one 9.8. Does that make sense that only one of them has sold?
Yeah. That's really
nice.
Oh, that's interesting. It's a tough cover, by the way.
Yeah, with those bright colors.
And when I say it's a tough cover, if there's a lot of really rich color and a spine tick goes on there instead of being a bend, it will probably break color. So that's one of the things that maybe on a white cover it doesn't break color, but it doesn't take much on a cover like that to all of a sudden you got a little white line on it and it stands out and really grabs your eyes.
This next honorable mention is Batman 237 from 1971, based on Bernie Wrightson idea, and it's a Neil Adams cover.
Yeah, so Batman is going to be in several books I talk about. Bringing superheroes into the horror world is kind of like that's really a Batman thing. I showed you that Daredevil cover. This particular cover, though, and I actually have a copy of this. This one's very coveted. This is not a cheap book, and it is very difficult to find in grade. So, once again, here you go. This skeleton, in this robe with a sickle. This time he's coming after Robin. So I really dig this cover. I think that a lot of people that could be watching this also, probably have an affinity towards that cover if you like DC or Batman at all. And it does have some horror flavor to it.
I mean, the skeleton. Next honorable mention is House of Mystery 175 from 1970. It's the first appearance of Kane, and it's the first Neil Adams cover series.
Also the first issue that doesn't have reprints. So this is the copy. These are incredibly difficult to get, especially with white pages.
There's only 90 graded copies. Highest graded is 9.6.
Yeah, it's there's only a few 9.4s of this. So this is a very tough to get book, very valuable. I mean, I'm curious to see if a book like this went to auction, what it would get, but it would get a lot of money.
The next honorable mention is Brave and the Bold 93 from 1970. It is a House of Mystery issue with a Neil Adams cover.
Yep, so I have a copy of this, and we're going to talk about we're going to compare this to another book later on in this talk, but man, do I love this book. I got a 9.4 off-white, and I really was waiting for a white page copy. They're very difficult to find. They're not plentiful. What's the data on this book?
Yeah, so there's 256 graded copies. 8.5 is the most commonly graded. You can get an 8.5 for just under $300 if you can find one.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting on these types of books. There's a grade. It's like a demarcation line that anything lower grade is going to be much cheaper, but like a 9.0 is going to go up a lot from this, and as you start going up from there, but 8.0 and 8.5 are a couple dollars difference. So 8.5s don't get a lot of love unless there's like none of a copy.
If that's the highest grade.
Yeah, if that's the highest grade, then you're happy to have it, But anyway, I definitely wanted to bring that book up. I think it is one of my favorite Batman covers in terms of his cape and the way he was drawn by Neil Adams. I thought Neil Adams was born to draw Batman.
When worlds collide.
And one last thing about that. This is, I think, on the 4th or 5th issue of House of Mystery. So bringing House of Mystery into Brave and the Bold was interesting. And DC was doing a lot of stuff in horror at the time. And you'll see some of those books later in this talk. Go right ahead.
All right, the next one on honorable mention is Detective Comics 400 from 1970. It is the origin and first appearance of Man-Bat, first Robin and Batgirl team up as well, and of course Neil Adams did the cover.
Yeah, so here I am, another Batman cover, because Neil Adams was doing these things with these covers that he brought into his horror stuff. This is not the last Bat he's going to draw. He's going to do others, and I just think it as a horror collector, this is a must-have. And that's the reason I collect it. I don't collect Batman, but I do collect some Batman books.
I mean, there's some Batmans out there that are sick.
Yeah, there are dozens of Batman books that I hop on when I see them, and a lot of them are in the Bronze and Silver Age. From the new Batman on, and in the 200s of Batman and the 400s of Detective, those are books I really focus on because of Neil Adams' art. Mostly. Yeah.
Neil.
And Kaluta and some other people.
Honorable mention. Here we go. DC Special number 4 from 1969. It is the first Able, and it is another Neil Adams cover. Early Bronze Age horror.
Yeah, this cover always confused me because I would look at it and look like, from a distance, it's firemen dealing with a fire, and these kids are watching. But as you look at it, as I look at it now, I see this shadow on the wall, and you got these two kids. Look, this is early Neil Adams, very early, before he really got into a lot of the horror stuff. This to me is like a stalwart book I need in my collection. I don't have.
I know you don't have it.
I've looked at copies. I've turned copies down along the way. They're not available that often. I wouldn't call it one of the most popular books, but man, for what I collect, I want it. I mean,
there's only 50 graded copies, so there's not a lot out there.
I'd really like a 9294 of this book. A 94 is what I really lean on.
Another honorable mention. DC Special number 11 from 1971. Neil Adams cover. I mean,
well,
cover's awesome. I like this one better than the other one. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I like this cover better than the other one. The gargoyle is just sick, and the only red on that cover is his tongue. So it's really a cool drawing with that dark green background and several kids looking at the wrong thing. They're looking the wrong direction. But I've had a couple copies of this, and they've had scratches on them or something's wrong with them. These books have really thick paper. I mean, when you have one in hand, they feel great. They're thick. They got weight to it. They were printed well. So I'm still looking for a copy, but this is definitely one of the Bronze Age horror books that I personally want to collect.
Okay, our last honorable mention is Marvel Spotlight number 2, which is the first appearance of Werewolf by Night. Neil Adams cover.
I personally just think this is so fun. I really do. I kind of stay away from monsters when I'm talking about horror, although, because they turn into anti-heroes and blah, 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 and they're more superhero-like, or, more villain-like. And a lot of the horror books that I really gravitate towards don't have ongoing storylines, except for Cain and Abel and the witches, and Tales of the Crypt and some of the other things I've read. There's always a narrator, somebody to tell you the story. Anyway, I think that not mentioning this would be a shame because of this great Neil Adams cover.
The cover's so cool.
It's very fun. So let's talk about the top 10.
Top 10. Here we go. Should we reiterate, too, that this is the top 10 that you've curated based on your knowledge and the information that we have about what's the most popular horror books out there? Yeah,
this really comes from my experience. Your experience might be different. You might have included a bunch of these honorable mentions or books I didn't even mention.
Yep.
And I get it. So I would just say sit back, enjoy the ride. These are some cool books. Some of them might not be on your radar at all. Most of them probably will be.
So don't be mad. All right, here we go. Number 10. Death Rattle number 1 from 1972. Kitchen Sink Press, Richard Corbin cover.
So if you don't get it, there's nothing I can tell you to help you. I mean, look at the date on this book and what else was going on, right? So this is when DC was blowing up, and this is by far much creepier than what they were doing. The next cover, Death Rattle 2, is also very cool, and I just showed that.
We did,
recently.
yeah.
I picked up the 9.4 of that book. This book, the paper just does not lend well to being touched. So it's got this thick paper that has this really deep purple, and there's always bends or something going on with this book. Where to say? And I think you have some sales there.
Yeah, so 21 graded copies. Highest graded is a 9.8, but there's only one 9.8. A 9.2 sold for $250 in February of 2023, and an 8.5 sold for $126 in October of 2023.
Yeah, I just saw a copy of this sell for $400 somewhere in like a 9.0. So this don't think for a second you're going to go out and get something like a 9.0 or a 9.2 of this cheap. I think it will be competitive, and I might be in the competition.
Well, I will say all the data I'm getting is from GPA, which is tracked sales, but we all know that that's not how all comic books are sold. So.
That's right. Yeah, they're not going to pick up every sale, and the numbers we give you are not definitive.
Right. They're just what we can see. Right.
They help you put things in a frame that you can work with. It doesn't mean it's going to be 100% accurate. That's number 10. Let's go to number 9.
Ooh, number 9. Number 9 is Wonder Woman 199 from 1972. Johnny Double appearance, bondage cover, and it's a Grey Tome cover. Jeffrey Jones also did the cover. Not cover.
God, I feel like I'm about to say the same thing I did for the last book. If you look at this book and you don't get it, I don't know what to say. I will challenge you with finding a high grade copy. And I just have to talk about the art, the shading on this, the whole feel of this cover. That's Wonder Woman, you guys. So Wonder Woman in this era was so cool because she dropped her outfit and she started wearing street clothes.
Yeah, your favorite Wonder Woman covers.
Yeah, in this period, I think Wonder Woman just stands out, for their covers and for the themes of what they were doing. But this one, it's just a Wonder Woman classic cover. The next cover, by the way, and go research that. The next cover is just as good.
Issue 200.
It's not as good. The next cover is close to as good.
There's 425 graded copies of this, highest graded 9.8. There's a lot, actually. There's 27 9.8s, which is pretty surprising of this book.
Wonder Woman was pretty heavily collected. That's one of the thing about these horror covers in superhero books.
Because people wanted all the
There were
issues
more
anyway.
Collectors in these superhero books. So yeah.
Well, a 9.8 sold for $2,640 in August of 2023. So that's a pricey.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I'm going to tell you, whoever sold it probably thought they were going to get more because it's dope.
All right, number 8 on the list is House of Secrets 81 from 1969, where the horror format begins. It is the first appearance of Abel in title and origin of the House of Secrets. Neil Adams did the cover. This is the issue.
I have a copy of this that I brought just to show. I bought a 9.0 like 4 years ago, and I was really upset because this is the highest grade one I'd seen. Haven't seen a lot of higher grade ones since. It does have white pages, though. Later on, a couple years later, I looked at this. It had doubled in value, and I was so happy I bought it. This is an old case. I don't think it's improvable, but I'm very glad to have. These are tough to find, guys, because this kicked it off. Really, I mean, you're looking at the beginning of the 15-cent covers, right? The beginning of the Bronze Age. And here we go with 2 kids and a dog in front of a house that looks like it has a face, lightning in the background, and it's just sick. I think this is a great cover, but most of all, it's what it represents to me that I like the most about it. And I think a lot of people would agree this is a very important Bronze Age horror comic book.
Yeah, there are 118 total graded copies. Highest graded is 9.4. There's only 7 9.4s. So good luck getting one of those.
It's super tough.
The most recent sale was a 7.5 that sold for $156 in September. The last 9.4 that sold, which is the highest graded book, sold for $1,115, but that was in 2020. So who knows what it would sell for today.
In 9.4, I think it would go for over $2,500.
Yeah, I'm sure that maybe they've traded on auctions or something, but I don't know. Number 7 on our top 10 list is Witching Hour #1 from 1969. First appearance of Mildred, and Cynthia. It's also a Neil Adams cover. Is there a theme here about Neil Adams? Do you like Neil Adams or something?
So much. Second only to Bernie Wrightson. If you don't know, now you know. Yeah, this series, I read it as a kid, and I like the series. I think they have some great covers, but I have a bit of a beef with these. This is a 12-center, by the way. Mm-hmm. So once again, we're in a very early stage of bronze. And if you look at the picture, then look at the cover, it's hard to see. I mean, and that's always kind of been a negative for me. But if you can take the time to really peer into it, the art's fantastic. You got your full moon. You got your house in the background. You got creepy witch up here that is primarily shadowed out with the green hues going on. This is phenomenal art. Love the book. Here, man, this
good job, Neil Adams.
Yeah, good job, Neil. Rest in peace, my friend. Yeah, he was firing on all pistons, and the theme of this particular comic book, and this is different than everything else we're going to look at in terms of it's the only horror comic book we're talking about from DC that started at #1. Everything else was adopting other series and reconning them. Mm-hmm. Not this one. Started at #1, and I was a fan as a kid. So
there's 385 graded copies. There's 6 9/8s.
Yeah.
And the most recent sale was a 9.2 that sold for $566 in August, and an 8.0 sold for $400 in September 2023.
Yeah, there's more of these. Some of these you're not going to see those kind of numbers, but I just think this is right up there. If you like bronze horror, this is the book. It's just one of the books that I have a copy, and that's not the copy I'd like to have long run, but we'll see how it goes.
It's the number 7 slot. All right, let's go to number 6, which is Weird War Tales number 1 from 1971, Joe Kubert cover.
Yeah, here we go. We're switching gears a little bit. Weird War, to me, is a bit darker than the other stuff. I love the word weird, and it has just some crazy stuff going on inside it. As much as I love this cover, I think as the series went on, it got more unique and more unique. There are covers, and Joe Kubert, man, my hat's off to Joe Kubert. You don't see any Jack Kirby horror. And Jack Kirby and Joe Kubert worked on a lot of the same types of titles,
Okay.
right? Joe Kubert's been around at this point for decades. Boy, when he did horror comic books in the 70s, he was off the chain. As a matter of fact, I loved his Tarzan stuff and the other things he was doing in DC, but he had some really fun covers here, and not just him. Dominguez and some other people kind of stepped in. A couple of notable covers, number 7, if you can put that up, and number 24. If you're a fan, and by the way, this series is really getting popular, and I'm glad it is, because there's some really good books in there. So we're halfway there. That was the bottom 5. Let's talk about the top 5.
Okay, number 5 is Swamp Thing number 1 from 1972, Origin of Swamp Thing, first appearance of Lieutenant Matt Cable and some other people. Bernie Wrightson cover.
I think this is the first Wrightson cover on our list, isn't it? It is.
I think so. I don't remember if our honorable mentions had any.
Yeah, no, this is the first Wrightson cover on our list. I don't think it's the last one. I know it's not.
He knows what's last on the list.
And yes, I am a fan of these artists, but I think anyone who looks at their art gets it. I mean, Todd McFarlane reminds me of them somewhat because of the amount of time he puts into his art, the amount of attention, the realism, where McFarlane goes a bit overboard. But I really like the realism of these particular artists. And man, this cover is something else. And it's been popular, by the way, since it came out.
Yeah, I mean, there's 3,109 copies that are graded, and there's 43 9/8. So that's, I mean...
They're out there.
Yeah. The last 9/8 sold for $5,529 in April of 2023.
Man, if I had a well-centered, good color strike copy of this, it would be in my Hall of Grails. If it was a 9/8. Because they're not going to be getting any easier to find, but... the first 10 covers of Swamp Thing were all Bernie Wrightson art, and I would implore you, if you've never looked into them, just check them out. I wouldn't say they're all home runs, but most of them are fantastic.
Number 4 is House of Mystery 174. Mystery format begins, and is a Joe Orlando cover.
So here's something for you. I for years thought this was Neil Adams.
It looks like it could be Neil Adams.
It does, and that Batman cover I was showing you, Brave and the Bold 93, very similar. Could be the same door, right? Honestly. The only thing missing is Batman, and I think this one's actually a little scarier. I get it. The kids are scared, but Batman even looks scared. And scared Batman, you got my vote. That's why I really like this cover. It's, I like Joe Orlando, and he's done some other covers I like. Really, it's the 175 that I lean towards. I don't even own a copy of this. And I may not unless I get a very high-grade copy, for the right price at the right time. Given my druthers between this and Brave and the Bold 93, I prefer Brave and the Bold 93.
Hence why he has it.
However, it's still a great book, and it's setting us up for some killer stuff to come. And I think a lot of people, when they think of Bronze Age horror, think of this cover. I think everyone that sees this cover just at first swipe likes it. Like, wow, that's creepy and that's really dark, and I dig it. Yeah.
There's 235 graded copies, and there's only 2 9/8s. The last 9/8 sold for $7,500 in 2021.
Did it now.
So who knows what that would sell for today?
Yeah,
I think a lot.
That particular issue, that particular copy had floated around for a long time, and I looked at it, and I looked at it in terms of I saw where it was for sale, and I just couldn't do it. So someone did it. Yeah, it's just not the book. There's other books on this list I think I would throw that kind of money at. This is not the one.
All right, let's go to the number 3 slot.
Like this one.
Is Batman 227 from 1970. It's the Robin backup story. It's a classic cover, Detective Comics 31 cover homage, and it's a Neil Adams cover yet again.
Yeah, this one kind of owns my soul. Creepy house in the background, full moon. There's Batman looking just not nice. And this beautiful woman, this is Neil Adams at his very best, running. I just think that in the world, this is a Batman comic. The Demon of Gothos Mansion is one of my favorite covers of all time. And I really think it's probably one of the better Bronze Age covers, period. Is it a horror cover? Yeah. I mean, you're going to see that theme over and over again through House of Mystery. You got some in House of Secrets. You have Witching Hour. They all have covers with a female running from a house like that, missing Batman. So I just think that this as art stands out, and really, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if it was number 1 on some people's list.
It's great. There's 2,263 graded copies, 11 9/8. The last 9/8 sold for $42,000 in September of 2022.
Yeah, it's no joke. I mean, I think everyone watching this knows this cover. And I put it up there. It's a book I'm always looking for, and I would like to have engraved someday. 9/8's not engraved. 9/8's insanity. Just so you know. Yeah.
All right. The number 2 slot. 100-page super spectacular, number 4 from 1971. Weird Mystery Tales, first issue. Bernie Wrightson appears in the story, and Bernie Wrightson did the cover and the incredible back cover.
Yeah, so if you don't mind, can you just get a good, clean picture of the back cover and put it up here? Let's talk about this for just a second. I've talked about this book at least 4 times on our channel.
In the last few weeks, even.
Well, yeah, at least once in the last couple of weeks. This, to me, it really, I would put it at number 1. But when you see number 1, it's like, there's 2 number 1s.
This is your number 1 in your heart.
Yeah, it's really complicated. I think this is one of the best covers in the Bronze Age period. The fact that it has this virgin back cover really makes it the book that you really don't want a backing board on. You want to look at that back cover. So this book give us some data on this book.
There are 213 graded copies. The highest graded copy is a 9.6. There's only 4 9.6s. There's 4 9.4s. There are no recent sales over an 8.5. The most recent sale over an 8.5 was in 2020. An 8.0 sold for $287. So the high grade issues do not sell very often. They do not trade very often.
That price is dead too. It's more now.
The last 9.6 that sold, which is the highest graded copy, sold for $5,700 in 2014. So like, who knows what that would sell for today?
It would be like watching piranhas eat a cow.
Because there's only 4 of them out there, so it's like they're holding on to those for dear life.
Hey, if you have a 9.6 of this that's already graded,
let us know.
It might be time. I mean, you might want to give Heritage a call and ask them to give you an evaluation.
Might make some money.
I would say it'd go between $15,000 and $20,000.
Maybe more.
Yeah,
it really depends on the buyers.
Here's the thing about that particular book. These 100-pagers, it's not like you're going to find a lot more 9.6s.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot. They're holding a lot of weight. I mean, there's and the color rub on these. I always see color rub on these covers because the back cover doesn't have white on it. It doesn't have a white margin. It doesn't have an advertising on it. Mm-hmm. And I love that. This art's so good. Let's just do the exact same thing with no trade. No trade dress on the back. So. This book, number 2.
Number 2.
And if that's number 2, what do you think number 1 is?
Make your guesses in the comments. And before we announce our number 1, I just want to reiterate, that you should subscribe to our channel.
She wants to reiterate that you should watch us all the time.
You should subscribe and leave a comment, like this video, so that we can show up on more people's feeds. We want you guys to watch our vids.
And I'd love, and go ahead and tell me how wrong I was. I'd like that.
Honestly, yeah. And then don't forget to follow us on Instagram. We do claim sales every Monday, 5 to 7. All right, number one.
Number one
is House of Secrets 92.
Who knew?
1971.
Who knew?
First appearance of Swamp Thing, gray tone cover, Bernie Wrightson.
Yeah, Bernie. Bernie brings the whole thing home in the top two spots.
I didn't even pull it up, but you know what it looks like.
Well, what's interesting, I think that 100-page Super Spectacular 4 is not so much on people's radar as this book is. Of the two covers, I have a hard time saying which one I like more. But this one is... A lot of people feel this is just the classic Bronze Age cover. This might be one of the best Bronze Age covers ever drawn. I have to agree. I just think the shading, the feeling, the perspective, everything about this, the colors that he used, he let everyone know that this is the way a comic book cover should be drawn. And this kind of reminds me of some of that pre-code stuff in terms of quality. So let's talk about value.
Yes, so there's 3,348 graded copies of this. Only 3 9/8 out of all of those, which is insane. 39 6s. 7.0 has the most graded copies at 350 7.0s. There are actually 14.5s, which was way more than like the other really low grade options, which I'm like, I wonder how much those sell for. A 9.6 sold for $33,600 in September of 2023. A 9.4 sold for $14,400 in June of 2023, and the last 9.8 sold for $90,000 in 2021.
Wow. Yeah, it's the real deal.
I wonder how much a 0.5 is, though. I bet we can get one of those for... Does it have a cover on it? I don't know.
We hope you have enjoyed this tour through the Bronze Age of comic books / horror comic books. I bet you we missed a lot. I bet you're thinking of 10 covers that we didn't include. And I have to tell you, there's 20 covers I would have liked to talk about that we did not include that are my favorites. Some of these are up there. My favorite ones we didn't really get into that much. I think it gets very personal if you collect these. Each one stands on its own. They're not like the next one. So on one cover you have a witch, on another cover you have like some kind of skeleton, on another cover you have a graveyard or kids hiding.
Well, it's like you could do your top 10 favorite House of Mystery, top 10 favorite House of Secrets, top 10 favorite witch. Like we could break it down into each series and have a top 10 conversation about it. So it's hard to determine what a top 10 of anything is in comics because there's so many.
Hopefully you found this entertaining, maybe a little bit helpful and helping you crystallize some ideas about horror. At some point in the near future, we're going to do something else. So
you bet we will.
You bet we will.
You bet. All right.
Until next time, thank you.
Goodbye.